Well, hello and good morning. This is a great resurrection celebration today. Listen, I'm just enjoying that war room going on right before our broadcast. Don't go anywhere. If you've never heard this segment, this is probably the one segment I could say you need to stick around for, because typically nobody does a better job of analyzing the movements that are happening around the world and how they affect the United States than Steve Bannon and his group, Pasobek. Obviously, the intelligence Mandarin. We got old, Lao Beijing there with Bannon. But today, I love it when these guys, because they're Catholic, and that's great. I love it when I hear the brothers focusing on the Bible and trying to honor the Scripture and such. But it's obvious for me. Now, Mercedes is already, look at it, get the camera, Mercedes. You can see she's doing a face plant because we're on live television, and she's like horrified. You guys see her?
I never know what you're going to say.
Covering her face. In the corner of my eye, I see her already. What I'm saying is, I do get tickled now and then because our background, because we both have advanced degrees in
biblical
studies. Yeah. So theology, Bible, and history, that's our strong suit, and we willingly defer to Steve and Pasobek and these other guys when it comes to human events, world events, economics, and such. I mean, we sit at their feet to learn. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying it's entertaining, and I enjoy it when I hear laymen, people that are actually piecing together their knowledge. And someone's going to say, oh, this is so pretentious. I'm telling you, it's great to hear, but every now and then I'll hear them like quoting a Bible verse or making up a Bible verse. And a lot of people wouldn't know it if they didn't have a master's or a doctorate in theology. But it's like, what? What are they saying? It's like drunk history. What are they saying? But I love it anyway. Because it's 99% of it's all right on the target anyway. They got the basic gist of it. But I want to do something today that's different. I want to go into the specificity of the stuff you'll never hear, because this is my territory. And I basically am an apologist for the supernatural resurrection of Jesus from the dead. I don't think people realize that being a believer isn't, of course, it's all by faith. But it's not a faith without evidence. Lee Strobel, who's a secular journalist, I think became a Christian and utilized his journalistic skills in order to pick apart the resurrection story. And he wrote a great classic best-selling book called The Case for Christ. And it's a whole book. It's an apologetic on the case for Jesus, the resurrection, because you need to know. It's not just, faith like wishful thinking or something like that. Like you hear these idiotic secularists like Yuri, Hazani, sitting there talking about how Jesus and the story of the first century is all fake news. There's a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got a neural link, lodged in his brain somewhere. So but the reality is the evidence for the resurrection. Just stop and think about this for a second. Mercedes, there was the Harvard book on the laws of evidence. Mm-hmm. It hasn't changed in like 100 years, and it's Dr. Simon Greenleaf, who actually compiled the Harvard Book on the Laws of Evidence. Greenleaf, being a Jew, applied his laws of evidence research to the resurrection, saying, I think we could historically pick this apart, like the assassination of Julius Caesar, which happened, some 50, 60, 70 years earlier. So there's history that was already there before Jesus came around. We tend to think of this like it's, people that don't get a sense of history think it's so far ago, who knows what happened? No, actually, we're not confused about this history. The Gallic campaigns of Caesar are written in great detail. Gaul is divided into, 3 parts, blah, blah, blah. And so all of that history is already recorded. Nobody questions it. And so the issue of Jesus in the first century, his historic existence and what he did, the mystery of his death, and the fact that they could not find the body, that's what I want to talk to you about. All of that is recorded history. For that reason, Simon Greenleaf, the Jewish scholar on the laws of evidence, said, I'll take it on, and I think I could punch holes through this mythology. Anyway, after his exhaustive study on applying the laws of evidence, he came to the conclusion that it could not be disproven that Jesus was resurrected from the dead, and he went and listed his evidence as to why it is very probable that he was resurrected. Not the least of which was, who would have taken the body from the tomb? Think about this. This is the most highly visible crime of the year, certainly 33 AD. It's virtually has a riot on the street that takes place. We have 4 writers that are chronicling 4 different angles of the experience, each seeing a different facet. Some people use the differences in the Bible as an argument that it's not inspired, but in fact, it's 4 different camera angles, giving you even more depth and gradation on the details of what's taking place. And so they don't always agree, only because they're providing different angles, but they don't contradict. That's the interesting part. So in the resurrection, what you've got is this highly publicized death, and the fact that it was so visible a Roman problem that Pilate had to resolve it. Pilate was the one that finally had to make the decision. So it had gotten to the point where it was beyond the Jewish government. It was now the Roman government, the occupying government had to make a decision. So therefore, a guard was sent to guard the tomb, because Jesus had made the statement that his enemies knew, that in 3 days I will rise up from the dead. And no one could quite figure out what he was talking about. But now that he was executed, they said this could be when his disciples tried to pull the hoax off. Guard the tomb so that the body is kept, so that we could bring the body out as evidence that he never rose from the dead. As James Kennedy said, nothing could have killed the Christian movement faster in the crib than to take out the dead body of the Messiah, hang him in the public square by his heels, and say, here, take a whiff, disciples, there's your resurrected Messiah. But they couldn't, because the body wasn't there. The Roman guards had an encounter where they were, and it's a phenomenon which is very, very common in Pentecostal circles, which is where if you get tasered, you fall down. Well, there's like a spiritual tasing that happens at times in the Bible, or at times when their energy is overtaken by a greater energy, and it's the anointing, and boom, for a moment, they just lose all sense of balance, and it overrides them, and they fall down. We call it getting slain in the spirit. Many times you fall forward or fall backwards. I mean, there's people that could fake it, but it's nonetheless something which, we grow up with. We realize it is real too. So that's what happened. These guards were all just put out. And so therefore, when they got back to their feet, they had seen something, a great emanating light that was there, and then they came to consciousness. And they said to the Jewish leaders, they explained what had happened. And then when they came to their senses, the seal that they had on the stone, they set it with a Roman seal, so it could be broken. The seal was broken, the stone was rolled away. And the Jewish priesthood, according to Matthew, said, look, we're going to tell the governor, don't worry about this. We're going to make sure the governor's okay with this. The story is you fell asleep and the disciples came and stole the body. That's going to be the story. So that would be the story. So Greenleaf is going down all of these trails of logic. Here's the problem. The Roman guards wouldn't be in on this thing for the disciples to steal the body. They wouldn't be working with the disciples because it's the penalty of death to sleep on a guard watch. One person sleeping on a guard watch would be, the penalty was in Rome for sleeping on guard, is to have your red cape wrapped around you, dripped in kerosene, and your lit on fire. Because in Roman history, a sleeping guard would cost a garrison their whole life. So the penalty for sleeping on guard duty was more severe than almost any other crime that you committed as a soldier. So to have a whole group of them sleep, not likely. So they were paid a sum of money in order to explain it. But the point is, you have a guard that is there that didn't stop it. So where Greenleaf goes with that is he says, well, what happens to what happens now? Did the disciples come and overpower the Roman soldiers and embarrass them, knock them all out? You hardly see that kind of heroics. I mean, by their own admission, Peter denies Jesus, cusses and goes back to fishing. They all ran in the Garden of Gethsemane. I mean, if you're writing a book about yourself, I'm sure you would put yourself in a good light. You'd probably make yourself look good. These guys are very honest and raw. They all forsook him. The only one that stuck around was John. And he stayed at a distance. He stayed with Mary. He stood with her and watched And he recorded details that everyone else didn't get because he watched Jesus up to the time he died and saw what happened. So Greenleaf is going down this decision matrix of Mercedes, and he says, the guards wouldn't have stolen the body. The Jewish disciples certainly are no heroic group, and they don't even present themselves as being, a real muscular crowd that's going to overpower the Romans and beat them up and embarrass them, and they'll make up a story. There's no story here that works. The Jewish leaders wouldn't take the body because they're trying to keep it from the myth of resurrection. And if they had it, they would have displayed it.
Yeah.
Therefore, understand something, and this is where people miss it. There is no body. You can find Muhammad. He's buried in 3 different locations. He's crossed through the Mediterranean. You can find the Buddha. You can find religious leaders. There is no body, and so this feeds this challenge, which is an intellectual challenge. It's not just a Disney When I Wish Upon a Star. It's evidence that starts to demand a verdict. And so I'll let you go ahead and say something because
no, you're on a roll. You got 1
can.
minute left. I think it's great, and I think you're right. It does demand a verdict, and I think it's so great that we talk about Jesus around Resurrection Sunday. And I don't. There's an element of sometimes it's one thing to explain who Jesus is and why he's so great, but I think also why we desperately need him. I think it's so important to talk about that as well, because it's a special. We're getting close to Resurrection Sunday, and I just think it's important people really understand, why Jesus? Why do I need Jesus? What does Jesus offer me? Because I think there are people who watch this program that share our worldview and our conservative, beliefs, but maybe don't understand necessarily who Jesus is or why it's such a gift and what he did just on Friday, technically, on Good Friday and what he gave for us. So I know we got a couple seconds left. But
go ahead.
No, we got 10 seconds. So I'm going to throw it back to you.
All right. When we come back, we're not going to talk about that right away because I think Americans have been hearing a lot of Jesus. I don't think you know the facts about why it is that it's a logical faith to believe in. And then we will talk about faith. And it's a special blueprint on what's happening with globalist elites trying to destroy the faith community that is resisting their control of the world. By the way, I'm not talking about Davos. I'm not talking about the World Economic Forum. I'm not talking about something going on right now. I'm talking about the Feast of Purim, that event that took place in the Bible where the Jews themselves were almost annihilated by a conspiracy of political intrigue that was designed to kill them and take them out. It speaks so powerfully to the moment we're living in right now. And it's how God overturned an agenda and reversed history. And it's in the story of Esther. It's in the power of one book in the Bible that was almost rejected by the people that framed and chose Bible books, because strangely enough, God's name isn't mentioned once, which tells you it's the story of God's providential intervention in history. And only the eye of faith can see what God did. Go to lancewallnau.com/Purim, Purim, lancewallnau.com/Purim. And you'll see what I'm talking about. You got nothing to lose. It's my gift to you. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard so far. This is just a segment out of our entire podcast, but I'd love to give you access to the entire broadcast, and it's going to be at lancewallnau.com/podcast. Go there, and you can sign up and get the entire unedited, uncensored message.